Welcome back, YouTube. So I wanted to do a video on the importance of the level of point 22 because more than likely, after we ascend past point 22 or get close to this retest, we're going to start seeing some overall just resistance. Not necessarily saying we're going to see like record high shorts or something like that, but we will see them come back into play. Why? Because point 22 is a very fundamental number for us ascending through the 20s and ultimately getting to around that 30-cent mark. So if we take a look at the charts, we not necessarily, if we're comparing it to the previous runs, it's kind of like that run from 6 cent to maybe like 10 or 12 is that there's some light resistance, like typically like around like 8. But when we go through the cycle and look at the macro and say, okay, well, where was a lot of the major resistance at? And obviously that was 10 cent. So that's technically around a 40% increase. So once we get past 0.22, we start looking at numbers like 0.26, 0.29, and those, for a coin at this price, those are technically gaps. So that means that's a very high volume, a very significant leap to start considering these other prices here. And after 30, after like the 29 range, I believe it's 35 is our next major point resistance. And that's a whole nother 5 cent. So that's when we start looking at, start comparing, okay, well, is this organic run going to be similar to the last run, or are those gaps still going to fill? Because if they are, this is where we start getting much bigger candles and much bigger momentum into the coin here. So this is kind of like just consider it like a last line of defense here, because things start to get really interesting once we get past these numbers. So I'm going to take a look here at the charts right now. We're around 2003. Having a not necessarily a retest, but filling this gap really between when we broke down from 20 to around the 18 mark. If you guys follow the channel, you know I'm really big on gaps filling. So this is kind of where we're playing out today. Obviously, this candle is still open, so there'll be some back and forth. I expect there to be an increase in shorts as well, but we'll see when we take a look here at the charts. But I wanted to kind of zone out and show you what I meant previously. So this is roughly where we are now. This is the range that we're in. Again, if you're using 0.5, you'll get like a number 26, but the range ends at around 30. So when we look at the big retest, this is why 18 cent was such a steep point of like resistance, because right here back in April 2022, that was a point where we got rejected before we went down to our main liquidity level. Here is the 22 level, which is where we're retesting now, right? And then so even if we zoom out a little further, excuse me, you'll see that this here is an area where we grabbed liquidity at when we were originally coming off of the big pump in 2021. We did it a couple of times and we ran to about 40 cent, right? So those are some of the major levels going up, like 35, 40. These are some of the major levels here. But other than that, if we scoot over here. And again, I do believe that we can, I'm not necessarily saying we're going to skip past some of these numbers, but I do believe that with the way that the coin is growing and the fact that this is a more of an organic run, so it's not necessarily like, we're not necessarily trading news or like a tweet or something like that. So it kind of like if it's like traders to pile in around a certain tweet and then trigger panic to kind of sell off, I do believe that we have the opportunity here to see more stable price increases. So now let's go zoom in here. So this here is around the 22 range. And then what we're looking at is we had some back and forths here, but where were the rejections? Where were the runs getting exhausted at, right? And that here, if we take a look here at some of the micros, that was around 30 cents. So what we're looking at is the next major points of resistance as far as for on the actual runs and the macros was around 30 to 40 cent. So we have some, we went over, like if you zoom in even more, obviously we have like 26 and 29, something similar to what 22 gave us in the short term, but the major points are much higher than where we are now. And I think that is kind of what's leading to this panic that we're seeing overall. And, 22, because technically we had the trader sell, we had some whale sell off last time. We have shorts that will typically spike around here. They know this is a very important number for this bull right now. Do I believe that they're going to be able to hold it here, especially after having? No, I think we're definitely going to go above 0.22 in my opinion. But they know how important this number is. So even when it comes down to, let's say, the longs, like if we go back and we'll say when were the longs trading or taking position, kind of like that great positioning that they were doing around 18, you'll have shorts do something similar. Now they'll swap shorts as well. I'll make sure this came up on the screen. So, okay. So they'll swap shorts as well, but because they've gotten spanked the last 2 times they've done this. We'll take a look at them in a moment, but you'll see that when we're talking about the great repositioning that was taking place, we saw that over the last few weeks, the longs were leading. They're still leading now, but the longs were leading at around 74 to 76% on like all the time frames, right? Right now it's 68.31, 68.31 on the 5 minute, the 30, the 1 hour, 68.31, the 4 hour, 69.30, and the 1 day 70.29. So for the last few weeks, the longs were leading significantly. And this is what I meant by the great repositioning, because they were also leading the liquidation. So they were taking profit and coming back in. So now they're looking for that next run to liquidate those, to get momentum and then finding their next liquidation point, which more than likely will be at the end of one of those gaps. So you'll have shorts try and do something similar, but obviously shorts, when we have like those runs, let's say they do pile in now, which we're going to take a look at the candles in a moment, they'll have to come out of those positions. And that's kind of can give you, since they are guaranteed buyers at some point, when they do that swap, you can kind of get that big run. Because the last time when they were getting spanked, that was the reason why we ran to around 0.22. That was around the same exact time. So yeah, so even right now, just off of these exchanges, short liquidations are up 6.3. And long liquidations are not even less than 1 million now, in the hundreds of thousands. So this is the lowest we've seen it in like the last 2-3 weeks. Let's check OI, see if we're above 1.3. Yep, OI is going up. We are now at 1.4. So we went up around, over the last 48 hours, we're going up around $100 million a day in open interest. So this run here is just like what we've been charting, just like we've been looking at the information behind the scenes. It's just playing out on the actual charts here. This is not something that should come as a surprise for those, especially for those of you that have been watching the channel. We have been expecting this. So I'm going to go back to the chart. One sec. And we're going to take a look at shorts. So based off of that data, they should be a green. Yep. So they're coming in around 29.18%. Again, this is just off of certain exchanges. This isn't like cumulative. This is giving you an idea of the tone of the market. It's not shorts. Tracking shorts is not as thorough as price action, because not even all exchanges even offer it, even though we know most of them will certainly take profit from it, but they don't necessarily offer it. So it kind of gives you an idea of the tone of the market. So we're seeing an increase here. Not anything significant, but anytime you start to get around a major pivot point like 22, some of them will be optimistic to say, okay, well, let me get here just in case they get rejected and go back to like 18 or something like that. They can kind of skim a little bit of profit off of the top. So it's not anything to be alerted by. They'll do this at major psychological numbers, whether that be a pivot point like 22 or a psychological number like 30 or something like that. You'll see these spikes here just because they're like, okay, well, if a whale dumps, if retail panics, they can take a profit, and we can kind of help get the momentum to go the direction we want. So nothing abnormal about that or that price range. Bitcoin is doing its rally, like we mentioned. It had the reversal hammer here, confirmation. This would be technically an entry at around the 14. Market is doing good, like we've been talking about. Everything's going early. Bitcoin is running and setting all-time highs before the halving. I think this market is going to shock a lot of people. Let's take a look here at BTC shorts. Let's see if they're coming out. They came out a little bit yesterday. So, and we have a slightly green candle today. Not very confident. Not as confident as the ones are in Doge, but they've certainly been coming out over the last 3 days. So this is their first green day in 72 hours. So we'll see where these candles close. By the way, all the candles we're looking at are open, so they're subject to change, but right now, not major confidence in being able to get that thing down. So right now we're holding 20, which is perfectly fine. Again, we don't necessarily have to go to 22 today. Just being back in this zone is more than evident of the reversal. So of the confirmation, well, we got the confirmation yesterday technically, but it's more than evident of the trend, the new trend going up to do the retest. So even if we don't necessarily run all the way to 22, it's not that big of a deal. We'll just see where we kind of end up over the next 48 hours. So whether we close at 20 and have this thing, or have this limbo, or this dance between 20 and 2022 in the next 48 hours, that's perfectly fine. But typically 22 is not that big of a resistance point. It's not like it shouldn't give us trouble like 18 did, right? But at the same time, we have to kind of keep in mind, because remember what happened with 12. This was, where's 12? Right here. 12 was supposed to be a battle zone based off of history, and it was not. We blew through 12 completely, didn't even think about it for like over like a week and a half, came back, did a slight retest off of it, and rallied again. So 12 was not the resistant level that we thought it was going to be based off of the chart. So momentum can trump the charts, especially in a bull run. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. So for all I know, I'm not trying to put hopium out there, but just kind of for those of you who are saying maybe we're going to hit it and reject it, just kind of keep that in mind. We've done a few things where it broke some records this cycle, even with open interest being over 2 billion. And it could be, we could get close to 2022 and completely blow it out of the water. So when you are looking at those entries, just kind of keep in mind, okay, well, what percentage am I looking for? Where am I looking to sell? Because you may not get the opportunity you think you have, or to have the time that you think you do to take those positions. So the people that were waiting on 12 are certainly disappointed. I can tell you that much. Or even the retest, because it was there and it was gone. So that being said, that's the importance of 22. That's kind of what I expect to kind of happen around point 2022, point 22, because that is a very pivotal number for us ascending through the 20. So how we handle that and when we hit those numbers are going to be very important to kind of tracking how we're going to perform throughout the 20s, and whether or not we get like that conviction, or whether or not we're just going to have momentum and just kind of ascend and start filling these gaps like we did previous times, or if we're going to set a new trend, right? Because we do have right now we're increasing by 6 figures of wallet holders per month, so that can certainly help compile that data and actually ascend us even faster, or maybe even not consolidate as much because we have so many new holders. These are all things that we're going to have to kind of see in real time here, but obviously they're bullish. So we'll see what happens with the 20s and how we kind of respond. We'll be charting that here. So if you found value, make sure you consider subscribing. We're on a mission to hit 100,000 subscribers before Bitcoin hits $100,000. So if you can help with that, please do. Leave a comment in the comment section. I'll get to as many as possible, and I'll see you guys in the next video.